let's begin the course by building our very first command. And this command should do little more than simply say hello world to you. We want to see what is the bare minimum amount of work to actually create a working command. Now in the last lesson, I noted that Artisan already offers a command called command:make. Now if you're curious about the colon, well, think of this as a way to allow for name spacing. So for example, notice migrate here. Well, when you're creating your commands, if you use a namespace, colon, and then the name of the command, they will all be nested under this top level namespace. So it's simply a way to organize all of your various commands. But anyhow, let's scroll back up and we're going to try out this command:make to see what it does for us. PHP Artisan command:make. And if I leave it just like that, it's going to let us know, hey, you don't have enough arguments. Well, let's view the help for it. PHP Artisan help command:make. Now we can see, all right, the first argument is a name. What is the name of the command? And then here's all of the various options. And you specify an option by using -- and then the option name. So for example, if you want the command to be stored in a special location rather than the default app/commands directory, well, you could run the command and then pass -- path and then the path to where it's going to be stored. In this case though, let's keep it simple and just stick with the single argument. So one more time, PHP Artisan command:make, and let's just call it hello command. We're going to follow this convention of the name of the command followed by the word command. All right, so if I run that, we get command created successfully. And now if I switch over to my code editor and I open app/commands, now you'll see that it generated this new file and gives us just a little bit of boilerplate so that we don't have to manually do this every single time. So let's look over this. Well, we can see at the top, we're just importing a handful of classes that we need access to. We have our class, which extends the command class. And now we can see that this is how we describe what the name is, meaning how do you call it, what the description is. So if I go back and run PHP Artisan, this would be the name, and then this would be the description that you provide. Next, we have the constructor, of course, and now this fire method, the command class that this class extends from, is automatically going to call this fire method. So you can think of this as sort of your bootstrap. Whatever you add here will run immediately when the user fires your command. Next, we have these two methods for get arguments as well as get options. Now, of course, both of these are optional, but this is a good place to store, for example, with get arguments. Well, using our hello command example for this lesson, maybe an argument could be what the greeting is. Do you want to say hello world or do you want to say what's up world? Well, that could be stored within an argument. And now think of options, and remember you specify options using -- and then the option name. Think of an option as things like overrides. Maybe you need to specify a path to where a particular file should be stored. Things like that should be contained as options. So let's go ahead and try this out. Let's scroll to the top and we're going to name our command just hello for the time being. And command description, we'll just say hello to user for demo. Now the constructor, we're not going to use any of that. Fire method, for now, why don't we just die? Now, there's much better ways, but all we care about right now is just seeing, does this method get called? So we'll say die was called. So we'll leave the arguments empty, and in fact, I'm going to comment these out for the time being. However, that's not enough. For example, if I go back and run PHP Artisan, you might hope that you could find our hello command somewhere in here, but no, it's not going to be listed. And that's because, yes, we have created the command, but we haven't yet registered it with Artisan. Now, for simple one-off commands like this, you can do it within start, and then notice there's this Artisan file, and this is where you can register your Artisan commands. So let's just say Artisan, add, and now we're going to pass it a new instance of the command. In this case, new hello command. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that, yes, we can reference new hello command, because if I switch to my composer.json file, we've already specified, and Laravel does this by default when you install the framework, that the app/commands directory should be autoloaded. The only thing we need to remember to do here is dump autoloads whenever we add a new file to this directory. And we can do that by simply running composer dump autoload. And that's it. All right, so now let's run PHP Artisan. And if I scroll to the top, you'll see, yep, we've added our first command. And now I want you to notice how the name was hello and the description we provided, those match up to those properties in the class quite nicely. All right, so now let's run it. PHP Artisan hello. And there we go. Now we can see was called. Now, of course, dying isn't really going to help us at all, but at least we know we're on the right track. So how can we say hello to the user using something other than a die or a print R? Well, let's just go back to our hello command. Within the fire method, we're going to use this info. Now, this is a special method for printing information out to the console. We'll say hello world. All right, let's try it again. PHP Artisan hello, and notice that that gets echoed out. Now, there's actually a handful of methods that we can use for printing data to the screen. So for example, info is a good one to say like, hey, your file was created. This info file was created. But what about if you want to let them know, hey, there was an error. Maybe they forgot to pass an argument in the right format, or maybe you couldn't write to some file. Well, in those cases, you would use this error. And here I'll just say, could not do that, whatever that might be. So now if I run it, you'll see that when we use the error method, it's going to use the proper coloring, assuming you have that set up in your terminal. So that's a good way to report errors. Now, how can we view a list of all of these? Well, remember, if I scroll back up, this inherits from the command class. So if we want to take a look at that, we'll go to console command, and now here's the class that it inherits from, and we can just take a look at some of the various things. Or within Sublime Text, I can view some of these. So here's the info method that we used earlier. And notice this output right line, and it wraps that within an info tag. And you can just take some time and go through each of these. So we have error, question, which we will take a look at in the next lesson, comment, info, and line, which is sort of a generic output. All right, so if I close this out, let's try some of these other ones. Line. Run it one more time. Now, as noted, the line method, that's really the most generic, simply print this string to the console. So we have line, we have error, we have info, we have comment. If we run that, then we will get it using this styling. So think of these various methods as semantic ways to provide information to the user. All right, so there's your first hello world command. In the next lesson, we're going to dig a bit more deeply into how you can fetch information from the user. So for example, if we are going to say PHP Artisan hello, well, maybe we want to allow the user to configure that greeting in some specific way.